Hey y'all, welcome back to my shop. I'm just finishing up buffing this Bradford Pear, a little textured bowl, and this is what we're going to work on today, so let me show you. Okay, we're going to start with this section of tree limb. It's about 6 inches in diameter, and we cut it in half on a bandsaw. We're going to take one part and see if there's any checking on either side. There's a little bit of cracking here, so we'll cut it here. We're going to turn it over. And we're going to put this 6-inch cylinder, 6-inch template right here. Some people use screws, some people use a little finishing nail. I find a tiny little awl works the easiest because you don't have to get another tool like a hammer. We're simply going to cut around this template on the bandsaw. First, let me turn on the dust collection system and put on some earmuffs. Turn around and cut around this with a bandsaw. On bowls like Bradford Pear, I normally just use a woodworm screw, so we're going to go ahead and drill a hole, 5/16 inch hole, appropriate for the woodworm screw I use. I use that same template and kind of center it as best I can, and then mark it. Normally I can hold this very easily without support. And that's going to be close enough. Usually keep a candle, put a little paraffin on here, make it a little easier to take this wood screw in and out. And I like to use this 50mm jaw set, works well with this. I like to make an extra little donut to give it a little extra stability. It's flat along here, and that gives it a little stronger hold, because your strength comes not only from the screws but also from the actual surface friction on your screw chuck. Just screw it on. Turn on the spindle lock. Get it pretty tight, because otherwise it's just going to tighten up. And I bring up tailstock support. A little extra protection. And adjust the tool rest a little bit lower. And we're ready to get started. Okay, next I put on my face shield. It's not your primary line of defense, but it's an important one. I want to take this opportunity to thank Carter & Son again for supporting my channel by gifting me with several of their wonderful tools. I'm going to use a 1/2-inch bowl gouge with a swept-back grind and a kind of a parabolic or a flute V-type shape. 1/2 inch is the actual diameter of the bar. British would call this a 3/8 inch, but we call it a 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch is plenty big enough for this size bowl. We're going to start off with a speed of about 800, and we're just going to do kind of a full cut here. Flute direction is at about 10 o'clock. I'm beginning to hang off tool rest a bit, so let's adjust the tool rest. I want to try to keep as much support as possible. Make sure it's not going to hit. Let the wood come to the bowl. Don't get in too big a hurry. Wood come to the bowl gouge, rather. This is a roughing cut. I'm not quite riding the bevel. A little less aggressive if I close the flute, get a little better cut. go ahead and turn off the bottom and put a tenon for my 50mm jaws. So I'm going to back off the tailstock. Start with flattening it off. Go straight in. Now I'll go ahead and bring back my tailstock support and mark the bottom. That's real important to have that little indentation. I'm going to use a pencil to mark the size of the tenon, and that should be pretty doggone close. Go ahead and add that tenon. And very important to get a nice clean shoulder. If anything, it's slightly recessed in the back. I'm going to switch to a detail gouge so I can get in there a little bit cleaner. In other words, the outside of the jaws should be stick out just a little bit to make sure the jaws are supported against that wood. Now I can come around and start finishing the shape a little bit. Still got a little bit of bark. Time to reorient the tool rest again. Now I'm just going to do a bit of a pull cut. I'm going to turn up the speed about 900 now that we got it nice and balanced. Still got a little bark. Gonna roll it over. Do a little bit of a shear scrape. I'm watching the wall over here, not the gouge. I'm watching the shape. Okay, got a nice cut there. I'm going to try to texture a little band on this bowl. It may be a little too wet. I'd prefer it to be a little, not necessarily dry, but a little less green, not slinging water wet. So I'm going to first start with making a little V-groove, just to kind of mark where I'm going to put that band. slow the speed down a little bit. And I got a lot of frizzies, and that's just what happens with green wood. But other than a few frizzies and a few bad hairs, it's a fairly clean cut. So knock out some of that with this brass detail brush. Try to clean that up a little bit more when it's dry. I've got to come down to that bead on each side. And I texture into it a little bit. I want the bead to be a little bit proud. I'll do that with this detail spindle gouge. Bowl gouges are not always just for bowls, and detail gouges are not always just for spindle gouges, not always just for spindles. With this, I can get right up to that bead. Ride the bevel. And just that where those two lines meet right there. And I think I'm just going to bring over, round over that beaded band just a bit on each side. And I think that'll do it. Time to reverse the bowl. I want to show you how important it is to get those chuck jaws absolutely flat, where you can't even get a piece of paper between the back of the bowl and the jaws. Something I like to do that a lot of turners don't is I like to go ahead and drill a depth hole to give me some feel for how deep I need to go. So I've got this thing with some filed notches on it. I don't know if you can see that. So I'm going to turn the speed down just a little bit. Turn the speed up to maybe 600. Clear the chips. And we're going to dress up this face this off a little bit, get a nice clean rim. I'm going to go straight into end grain. Get the job done. Now, you always get rid of that sharp edge because it will cut you. Alright, got a nice clean flat edge. We're going to start from the center, work our way back. And when you first come in, you really need to support it because you got a live edge coming in. Here's the bevel. You've got to really swing your handle around. Once you get it riding on the bevel, you can actually use it really one hand. Always get gets a little rough hitting near the bottom because you're going into end grain, straight into end grain. Yeah, now I want to think a little bit about how I want this rim to look. I think I'll probably just put a little bead on it. So I'm going to come in here with this little V scraper. Mark the V. Come in with his detail gouge. Bracing it with my little finger and slicing it in, sliding the bevel. Come over the top. Okay, I got it meeting pretty close. Now I've got a little rough edge there I need to kind of round over. We're just going to do a little shear scrape. Drop the handle down. Wispy little shavings. And okay, that's cleaned that up nice. I want to leave a fairly thick rim and then come in behind it to get to thin out the bowl. Change the tool rest position, get a little more tool support. Make sure it's not rubbing. Reach way out. Support this with my finger if we got a live edge coming in. A little better view of the cutting edge. Riding the bevel. Slowly rotating your tool. Okay, got a ridge there, got to bring it around, still pretty thick at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to change to a different shape profile gouge. I'm going to go to a 3/8 inch C flute with a fairly steep bevel to allow me to make that turn through there. Nice clean cut through here, a little bit of a bounce there, a little thicker there. Still got some ripples there. Sometimes I find it the easiest way to get rid of those ripples is use a scraper. I'm going to reach over for a negative rake scraper, come in there flat, just to get rid of those little ripples at the bottom and see what happens. Normally I don't get hair out with Bradford Pear, so some wood you can't do this on. Still got a bit of a Bit of a ripple there. Your hand can detect things that your eyes can't see. Here's the bowl almost done with the texturing. I'm going to put this in a bag for a couple of days, let it dry out a little bit. Then I'll put it back on the lathe. It'll warp a little bit, but I'll be able to do a little bit of sanding on the lathe and then turn it around and turn off the bottom. Okay, so there's how we turn this bowl. I only turned it once, and I let it dry before I took it off. I didn't show you taking it off the lathe, but it warped, but I think it turned out real nice. I took a little green dye pen and highlighted it in a couple of places for a different effect. If you enjoyed my video, please consider subscribing. Y'all come back here and stay safe.